I want you to take a second and really examine the architecture of the closest relationships in your life right now, like the colleagues you rely on, the friends you text every single day, the person you're married to.
Yeah, that's a tough audit to do.
It is, right. But if you strip away the routine and look at the actual load-bearing walls of those connections, you have to ask yourself, are they built on an unshakable commitment? Or, are they just functioning on a system of mutual convenience? Because we operate in a deeply optimized culture.
Oh, totally. Everything is optimized.
Everything. From our media feeds to meal delivery, it's all engineered to reduce friction and, maximize our personal return on investment.
And that optimization mindset, it inevitably bleeds into human connection, doesn't it? We start evaluating relationships through this subconsciously transactional lens.
Like keeping a mental ledger.
Exactly. Constantly calculating whether the energy we're putting in matches the emotional or practical payout we're getting back. But the source material we're looking at today actively disrupts that entire framework.
Yeah, it really does.
It's this compelling sermon-style text titled Loyalty, the Language of Covenant. And the thesis here is that true loyalty isn't just, a byproduct of affection or some tribal badge you wear. It argues that loyalty is the foundational operating system of the kingdom of God.
Which is a massive paradigm shift.
It is. It's a mechanism that functions in direct opposition to our modern obsession with preference and convenience.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really grasp the profound weight of what this text is arguing, we first have to deconstruct our baseline assumptions about commitment.
Right, we have to clear the deck.
Exactly. The text draws this incredibly rigid distinction between two relational frameworks, a contract and a covenant. Now, in our modern economy, we are totally fluent in contracts. Think about like a monthly software subscription.
Or a standard corporate employment agreement.
Right. And the governing dynamic in those is always defensive. I give you my monthly fee, you provide the streaming service. The defining question of a contract is always, what am I getting out of this?
Yeah, you enter into it to protect your own interests.
Exactly. And the moment the software bugs out or, the value drops below the cost, you cancel. You're out.
But a covenant dismantles that defensive posture entirely. It replaces, what am I getting, with a radically different orienting question. It asks, how can I remain faithful?
Wow. How can I remain faithful? That's heavy.
It's a totally different frequency. A contract demands perfect symmetry. It only survives as long as both parties execute their deliverables flawlessly. But a covenant is engineered specifically to absorb asymmetry.
Meaning it's built for failure.
Built to remain structurally intact even when the other party completely drops the ball, which means the commitment holds even when immense personal sacrifice is required.
That structural difference is vital.
Yeah.
When we think about it architecturally, a contract is basically like drywall in a house. It looks pristine, it divides the space perfectly, but the moment the foundation shifts or the house settles, what happens?
The drywall just cracks and shatters.
Exactly. It cannot handle shear stress.
Yeah.
A covenant, on the other hand, is the steel I-beam. It's designed specifically to carry the crushing weight when the environment becomes unstable. And the text anchors this steel I-beam concept in theology, right?
Yeah, it asserts that God's loyalty isn't a reactive stance based on human performance. It flows from his ontology, his very nature. The author actually isolates a really fascinating verse to demonstrate this mechanism.
Oh, right, the one in Timothy.
Yeah, 2 Timothy 2:13. It reads, "If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself."
For he cannot deny himself. That's so counterintuitive to how we operate.
Completely. The text is pointing out a psychological and theological reality here. God's faithfulness is an intrinsic characteristic, not a conditional response. Because humans, well, we default to mirroring.
Yeah, if you're cold to me, I'm cold to you.
Right. If you break the agreement, I am legally and morally released from my obligations. But this verse claims God does not mirror human unreliability because doing so would require him to violate his own character.
That's incredible.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the practical implications for human relationships become staggering. The text argues that marriage, ministry, deep friendships, they were originally designed to operate on this covenantal frequency.
Which we've almost entirely lost.
We have. If you approach a marriage like a contract, which is pretty much the modern cultural default, the moment your spouse experiences, say, a severe depressive episode or loses their earning potential, they're no longer providing that agreed-upon emotional or financial ROI.
So under a contract, you're justified in leaving.
Right. The contract is breached. You have a culturally sanctioned exit. But viewed through the lens of a covenant, That period of profound deficit doesn't dissolve the relationship. The deficit is the exact environment where the covenant was designed to activate.
Which introduces a massive problem for the human ego. Because, we are biologically wired for self-preservation. Declaring loyalty when the relational ecosystem is thriving requires absolutely zero caloric energy.
Right, it's easy to be loyal on a sunny day.
Exactly. I can vow absolute devotion to a business partner when the profits are soaring. But the structural integrity of that steel I-beam, you can't actually verify it until a massive earthquake hits.
Yeah, talk is cheap.
So cheap. And we constantly see people publicly pledge their loyalty to a person or an institution only to, aggressively pursue severance packages or cut all ties the second the PR math turns negative.
The text actually anticipates that exact skepticism. It argues that loyalty cannot be self-reported. It can only be authenticated in the crucible of pressure.
A crucible?
Yeah. Genuine covenant loyalty only reveals itself in those highly specific, agonizing windows where staying committed costs you significantly more than walking away. It's proven when misunderstandings fester, when there's zero external applause for your faithfulness, and when the logical, mathematical calculation dictates that you should just cut your losses to survive.
And the text grounds this theory in the historical account of Ruth. And I think we really have to look closely at the socioeconomic reality of the ancient Near East to understand the magnitude of her choice here.
Oh, absolutely. The context is everything.
Right. Because most people know the basic plot. Ruth is a Moabite woman who marries into an Israelite family. Her father-in-law dies, followed by her husband and her brother-in-law. She's left widowed, living with her widowed mother-in-law, Naomi.
Which is tragic on its own.
Right. But this isn't just a sad family tragedy. In that specific historical and cultural context, a widow without adult sons to advocate for her or provide labor had absolutely zero social safety net. They were facing literal, imminent starvation. They were at the absolute bottom of the socioeconomic hierarchy.
And Naomi actually attempts to invoke a contractual exit clause for Ruth here.
She gives her an out.
She does. She instructs her daughters-in-law to return to their Moabite families, to their own gods, and to seek new husbands. Naomi is offering a culturally acceptable, highly logical out. She recognizes she has zero ROI to offer them.
She's basically saying the contract is void. Save yourself.
Exactly, because by returning to her people, Ruth would regain physical safety, societal standing, the possibility of a future. Choosing to stay with an impoverished, bitter older woman migrating back to a foreign land, that was an act of complete socioeconomic suicide.
Yet Ruth rejects the exit clause. She delivers one of the most definitive declarations of covenant in antiquity. It's recorded in Ruth 1:16, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God."
It gives me chills every time I read it.
It's so powerful. She is entirely abandoning her autonomy. She's tying her survival to someone who can offer her absolutely nothing in return. It's a portrait of pure asymmetrical sacrifice.
And the author of the text emphasizes the historical blast radius of that single asymmetrical choice.
Historical blast radius, I like that.
Well, because Ruth bypassed the contractual self-preserving route, she eventually marries an Israelite named Boaz. And through that specific lineage, she becomes the great-grandmother of King David. She effectively positions a Moabite outsider directly into the ancestral line of Jesus Christ. So the argument here is that covenant loyalty isn't just some noble interpersonal ethic. It's a world-building force. It fundamentally alters history.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and where I think any critically thinking listener has to push back a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because the concept of abandoning autonomy and binding yourself to someone else is beautiful in the context of Ruth and Naomi. But in modern application, loyalty is frequently weaponized.
Oh, 100%.
It's the exact terminology used to enforce silence in corrupt corporate cultures, right? It's the mechanism abusers use to trap victims. We see people enabling destructive addictions in their family members under the banner of, "I'm just being fiercely loyal."
Yeah, that happens all the time.
So does this text's definition of covenant demand a blind, unconditional adherence to a person, regardless of their behavior?
It's a crucial question, and the text carefully dismantles that toxic application. It draws a definitive boundary. Biblical loyalty is never loyalty to sin. It is entirely tethered to truth.
Okay, so there's a line.
A very clear line. Blindly supporting someone as they engage in unethical, destructive, or abusive behavior is not covenant loyalty, it's enabling. And enabling is fundamentally a self-serving act.
Wait, really? Self-serving? How so?
Well, think about it.
Mm.
You lower the moral or relational standard because confronting the behavior would cause friction, right? And you want to avoid the discomfort of that conflict. True loyalty is willing to endure the relational friction to advocate for the other person's ultimate good.
Oh, wow. Which completely redefines how we view confrontation.
It flips it on its head.
Yeah, because we tend to view confrontation as a breach of loyalty. Like, if you were truly my friend, you would take my side. But if loyalty is tethered to truth, then refusing to confront a friend who is destroying their life is actually an act of betrayal.
Exactly. You're prioritizing the preservation of a comfortable dynamic over their actual well-being. And the text uses Jesus to model the mechanics of this tension.
Right. He's the ultimate case study here.
He is. Jesus is presented as the master of navigating the tension between radical love and absolute truth. He maintained these deep, intimate covenants with his disciples, but he routinely dismantled their flawed paradigms.
Like with Peter.
Yeah, when Peter, one of his most trusted inner circle friends, attempted to convince Jesus to avoid the suffering of the cross, Jesus didn't, validate Peter's feelings to keep the peace.
Right. He didn't say, I hear your concern, Peter.
No, he delivered a devastatingly sharp rebuke. He loved Peter enough to violently correct his trajectory.
And then there's the tension with Judas.
Yes. What's fascinating here is how the text analyzes Jesus' interaction with Judas Iscariot. Jesus possessed the foreknowledge of Judas's betrayal, yet he still knelt and washed Judas's feet hours before the arrest.
Which is just mind-blowing.
It is. He maintained his posture of service and love, but he did not compromise the mission or alter the truth to prevent Judas from executing his disastrous choice. He stayed true to the covenant, allowing Judas to face the horrific consequences of his own autonomy.
So what does this all mean when we extrapolate this framework to its ultimate conclusion? Because if true covenant loyalty requires maintaining that steel I-beam of truth and mission, even in the face of total relational asymmetry, rejection, and betrayal, well, we're inevitably led to the climax of the source material.
We have to look at the cross.
Exactly. We have to look at the psychological and physical environment of the crucifixion, beginning in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Gethsemane is the ultimate stress test of the covenant. The text paints this visceral picture of Jesus experiencing profound psychological horror. He's staring down the reality of bearing the infinite weight of human sin and the subsequent severing of intimacy with the Father.
And his human nature recoils.
Completely. He explicitly asks if there's any alternate route to accomplish the mission. Yet the governing principle of his existence remains intact. Not my will, but yours be done.
And the isolation in that moment is just staggering. The disciples, these men he has poured his entire life into, they can't even maintain consciousness to offer emotional support.
Or fall asleep.
Yeah. And within hours, the entire human network defaults on the contract. The religious leaders fabricate charges, the crowds demand his execution, Peter vehemently denies their association, and the Roman state utilizes horrific physical violence.
Every single party involved radically breached whatever relational or legal contract existed.
Under any contractual framework, Jesus has every legal and moral right to terminate the agreement and just leave humanity to its own devices.
And that is the pivotal insight of the text. Because Jesus operates natively in the language of covenant, the catastrophic faithlessness of humanity does not dictate his response.
He absorbs it.
He absorbs the sheer stress of the fractured relationship. The text cites John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends.
Wow.
The cross is framed here not merely as an act of divine affection, but as the supreme, unassailable proof of covenant loyalty. It's the absolute guarantee that God's commitment to humanity holds fast even when humanity is actively driving the nails.
And understanding that mechanism, that we are the beneficiaries of a covenant we actively tried to destroy, it has to change how we operate. I mean, you cannot intellectually grasp that level of asymmetrical grace and continue evaluating your friendships and marriages like monthly software subscriptions.
It just doesn't work.
It doesn't, which is why the text shifts from theology to a highly practical diagnostic tool. It details the marks of a loyal believer, and it basically challenges you, the listener, to audit your own behaviors.
Yeah, to really look in the mirror.
Right. It says a person operating in covenant remains steadfast when their emotional state fluctuates. They actively protect the dignity of their relationships, refusing to participate in gossip that would erode trust.
They execute their promises.
Even when fulfilling them becomes highly inconvenient or financially costly, they consistently choose to uphold the truth, even if it results in a loss of popularity or status. And they engage in the unglamorous hidden work of serving others without requiring an audience or applause.
which goes back to doing it without looking for the ROI.
Exactly. Ultimately, they recognize that the heavy, durable reality of a covenant offers a profound security that the fleeting, frictionless ease of a convenience culture can never replicate. So, are the relationships in your life built on covenant, or are they just convenient?
It is a radically countercultural standard. It requires an intentional rewiring of our instinct for self-preservation. But as we absorb the weight of this text, I want to leave you with a different way to frame this paradigm.
Okay, I'm listening.
Throughout this deep dive, we focus on how covenant transforms individual relationships, how it shifts a marriage or a friendship from a fragile contract to a durable bond. But imagine, for a moment, the systemic implications.
What do you mean by systemic?
Well, what if the structural architecture of our entire society wasn't built on risk-mitigating contracts? Think about the sprawling legal frameworks, the massive compliance departments, and the intricate economic policies we rely on every day.
They're all defensive.
Yes. They all exist purely because we assume the other party will default the moment it benefits them. They are, essentially, monuments to human unreliability.
Wow! Monuments to human unreliability. That's heavy.
But if the foundational operating system of human interaction actually shifted to the language of covenant, where the primary objective was not, how do I protect my assets from your failure, but how do we absorb the cost of failure together? How entirely unrecognizable and perhaps beautiful would our modern world become? And bringing it back to you, the listener, when you inevitably fail in life, who is holding the covenant for you? And more importantly, are you prepared to be the one who absorbs the cost of someone else's failure without keeping score?